Howdy, all Mogulax Lives. I think it's time to play a little Some Days to Die. All right, I'm trying to get some mechanical parts for making a workbench. I don't have enough parts on me, and so I'm trying here in the dark to get some parts. And like I said, it has been a struggle so far. Actually, the whole day here has just been a struggle because I can't get this video made. I am really, really struggling to get this video made. The first time, uh, the first time I ran out of space on my hard drive, and I forgot to push record one time. It just does not the amount of material that I could talk about. Uh, this weekend was Christmas. So we're gonna do a little short thing on Christmas because there was a funny thing that happened. We did our normal Christmas. We don't do anything special really for Christmas. We don't make a big dinner or anything. We just get together and we usually buy our dinner for Christmas, and so we got pizza this year. And then the funny thing is that we all get around the Christmas tree to open presents. There's piles and piles of gifts, and they start handing out the gifts. We do it in our family. The children hand out the gifts, and uh, so usually it goes, you hand out a gift, you hand out a gift, you get one for yourself, kind of thing. And so they hand out the gifts to open, and I barely had anything because everybody got me the same thing, and most of them got it for me digitally. And that was Steam Bucks. So I got a few games from Steam for Christmas, which is what I wanted. I'm not bashing it. It was just weird to sit there while everybody opened gifts, and then I just sat there twiddling my thumbs, waiting for everybody to finish. Um, I heard that zombie, but I didn't expect it was gonna kill me with one hit. I got caught in a death loop earlier. I was so far from home, I couldn't get back. And of course, it's been raining. It's been raining the entire time I've been playing today, making everything even darker than normal. I need mechanical parts, and that was giving me electric parts. I need to go bust up some cars, I guess. Um, so yeah, so that was funny. I thought, and but the big thing that happened to me this weekend was Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time's book series. They turned it into a TV show on Amazon. I've read some of the books over 10 times. It's one of my favorite book series of all time. The author was, I considered my favorite author until he died. And then they hired a different guy to finish the series, but by the time that guy was hired to finish the series, he was already my new favorite author. So it's kind of awesome to have my new favorite author finish the series for my old favorite author. And but the previous guy, Robert Jordan, he had dictated how the series was going to end and had notes on what was supposed to happen, and so they weren't going in blind. They knew how the story was going to end. They just needed someone to turn it into books. So they got the author to do it. So they then announced they're doing this show, and I'm excited because I would love to see Wheel of Time made into a show. And here's the thing: I would still love to see Wheel of Time made into a show because they're not doing it. And so I get to the end of the season was Friday, and I was furious after watching that episode. So angry. Still pretty irritated about it, which is why I'm struggling to make this episode a reasonable length of time. And I went to Twitter after I've watched it because I'm like, oh, I'm so mad. I got to see other people being mad about it. And I go on Twitter and I'm not saying it's still the same now, but when I went on there, there were no bad tweets about it. And I'm like, what is going on? How are people not livid about what happened in this episode of this show that already wasn't following what was supposed to happen in the books? And it just kept getting worse and worse. Um, and I'm not, I mean, I've discussed multiple times. I get it's translated from book to visual media, things are going to be different. I also get that the book is like 700 pages long for the first book, um, over 700 pages. All the books are like that. I get that you're not going to get all of that story translated into 8 episodes of a season. I get they're going to leave out characters, they're going to leave out places, things might happen in a different order. I understand all of that. I don't have a problem with it. It's not that big a deal to me. My problem is that the people who made the show decided to fundamentally change what was going on in the story, uh, and change it in ways just because they could, and then say they changed it because they wanted to irritate the book readers. Um, why? I know one of the comments on Reddit. Well, okay, so I went to Rotten Tomatoes. I don't usually go to Rotten Tomatoes. I don't really care what other people think about things, but I was angry and I wanted other people to be angry with me. And so go to Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes liked it. The critics were over 80%. The viewers were over 70%. I'm like, how can you like this? It's terrible. And so I'm like, all right, I know. I will go to Reddit. I'm sure I can find people who don't like it on Reddit. And so I went to the Wheel of Time Reddit, and on the Wheel of Time Reddit, they had it split up. Book readers, not book readers. So I'm a book reader, so I went to the book reader section. The book reader section was also split up. People who liked it, people who don't like it. The people who liked it had 400 comments on their thread when I was there. The people who don't like it had over 3,200 comments about how they didn't like it. I'm like, home. So yes, so it's not just me. But for those not familiar with the Wheel of Time, spoilers. Uh, the story is basically this. There are magic users. They use a power called the One Power. The One Power is split into 2 halves, the male half and the female half. Um, and for the most part, only females can use the female half, only males can use the male half. Um, so during a time called the Age of Legends, uh, the magic users are called channelers. The channeler scientists wanted to find a way so that men and women could use the same power, because the way it worked was a woman or a man could do things. A woman or a man could group together with other. Actually, I'm not sure a man can group with another man. I think a woman has to be involved to let 2 men group together. I don't remember. It doesn't happen often enough in the books, men grouping together. But I know like up to 13 women, I think, can get into a group, and then they need a man in the group so that they can extend it past that point. And so grouping together makes them more powerful. But to do the greatest things with the power requires both men and women to be working together. So the scientists wanted to find a way so they weren't limited by the male female groupings. And and so what they did was drill a hole into something they found. Uh, and that thing turned out to be a prison for a god level evil being called the Dark One. And um, and so uh, their their civilization was free of hunger, free of uh, war, for the most part, free of violence. Uh, and and so they weren't prepared for what happened in any way, and so releasing the Dark One released a terrible war onto the worlds, and the uh, and so they try to fight back, but some people sided with the Dark One. Whole cities went to war against each other. Whole countries went to war against each other. Uh, they tried to figure out what to do. They came up with a plan. They would create these super weapons called the Choden Call, which would allow a male channeler and a female channeler to wield unfathomable amounts of power. And so that was the plan. But so the Choden Call are these giant statues, and then uh, there's keys to allow you to use those things, a male one and a female one. And so the bad guys stole the keys. And so at that point, they were doomed. Uh, and so the leader of the channelers was a man named Louis Theron Telemon, the Dragon. And he was going to head to where the prison was and attempt to. Oh man, you know what? I'm going to lose my wrench here because I didn't save a second wrench. Uh, and he was going to lead a group to seal the hole that they had drilled accidentally. I mean, they drilled it on purpose, but they didn't know what they were doing. And so that's what he did. He led a group of all males to attack the bore and seal it. And so when he did that, they managed to seal the bore, but just before they did, they the Dark One tainted the male side of the power. And so while they sealed the bore, they also sealed away the 13 generals of the Dark One called the Forsaken. They are people who turned against humanity. And uh, and so uh, that made all the male channelers go insane instantly, and any male channeler who has been born since goes insane. That's the way it works. And the men broke the world. They tore it apart. Seas vanished. New mountain ranges. All that kind of stuff. And so they barely managed to survive the destruction of the time of legends, the golden age of channelers. And so the story takes place like 3,000 years later. The seals placed on the Dark One's prison by Louis Theron Telemon are weakening, and prophecy says that the dragon will be reborn in the last days to break the world and to save a remnant of humanity from the Dark One. The book story didn't play out like that, but that was the prophecy. There wasn't a remnant so much as most of humanity. Um, but so that's the backstory, and then the actual like story itself starts with this small group of people who all live in the same village, and one of them is the Dragon Reborn, um, and the rest of them are going to become like the leaders of the world, and so they're the Dragon Reborn and his generals who are going to reshape civilization and save them from the Dark One. I mean, that's the story, right? It's this small town. It's the standard hero's journey. He starts out as a nobody in the middle of nowhere, and then by the end, he controls the world, right? Uh, it's pretty standard video game RPG. So you know, um, so yeah, so that's basically the story going into the show. All right, that's the background story. Um, so the show picks up pretty much where the book picks up, and did that get made? It did. Awesome. Got my first workbench. We'll put it over here, I guess. And so, uh, gun safe. Uh, just want to see what I can make now that I have it. Not a lot. There's a lot that's still locked out. Uh, can I make a new? Uh, can I make a new wrench? No, wrench is not on the list here. Well, I'm a little disappointed at how little I can actually make in my new workbench. I need to go get some more bits and bobs here. It looks like. All right. Well, we'll head back out. That's fine. So, yeah. So I watched through the first 8 episodes, or first 7 episodes, and I'm like, this is different from the book, but it's not so different. Like, I don't understand how they're gonna get to the parts in the book that I remember. With what they've done, but maybe they'll get there. And then episode 8 just like ruined it for me. I'm not saying I'm not gonna watch the future episodes, but I am extremely not happy with what has gone down. And so basically, reading through what people have said, they had quotes from the author. And the author has stated things like, one of the characters who's a fairly major character in the book, he's not the main characters, so he didn't technically even need to be in the show, um, because I mean, like I said, there's a lot of the show you could cut out. Do I want him in the show? Yes, he is probably one of the more beloved characters in the series. But is he necessary to the series? I can't think of a reason why he needs to be there. So there's a lot of that. The books are so large that there's a lot you could cut out and not change what happened. And so I get that. I expected that. What I don't expect is to have him on the show, have him do nothing, uh, and then stab him in a way that should kill him at the end of the show. And so I was shocked, because, and here's the thing: if this series followed the books at all, in any way, and I don't mean like the direction the storyline went, I mean the actual things that are supposed to work in the series. Oh man, I left all my bullets at home and now I got a rifle? Um, then he would be dead. He would just be dead. One of the characters in the book, and this is ugh, one of the changes. One of the characters in the book is Matt. Matt gets this dagger from a place called Shadar Logoth. Shadar Logoth, I usually pronounce it. And the city he takes it from is super evil. It's so evil that even the Dark One and his minions, well, the Dark One's minions fear it. That's how evil this place is. Because it's a different kind of evil than the Dark One's evil. Like the Dark One is evil, evil. This place is evil, human evil, and um, which apparently is just as bad as the Dark One, because the Dark One's just a creature, right? It's not. It's not like he's a true thing, I guess. But it's not like he's like Satan or something, you know. But he's that concept, I guess. Except he's also a creature that is imprisoned and people can release, so that makes him a bit less, in my mind, than a major, you know, evil creature in human religions now. Um, and so, anyways, so they get and um, the dagger poisons him. Just being in contact with it. But because he also has accepted part of the evil, it doesn't kill him outright. It just slowly poisons him over time. But any person attacked by this dagger dies. One scratch can kill you. Uh, and there are people in the show who die from, or in the show, people in the books who die from a scratch from this dagger. That's because it's super evil, tainted with evil. Um, nice potatoes. Usually, I struggle to find potatoes, and so it's a big deal. This dagger is a big deal in this story. Uh, um, I mean, at one point in the books, the main character Rand, he gets stabbed by one of the Forsaken, and it taints him with the evil of the Dark One. And then he gets sliced by the dagger from Shadar Logoth, and the two evils fight each other, and it's the only thing that allows him to stay alive is the two evils both fighting each other and trying to kill him. Uh, and I mean that whole storyline is probably not happening, obviously, in the TV show because nothing that happens in the TV show matches what happens in the book. And so this dagger is that serious. It's it's no joke. It to heal Matt, one of the main characters, from holding the dagger in the books, he loses whole swaths of his memory. And in the show, it didn't seem to phase him at all. Uh, and so the bad guy in the last episode stabs this guy in the stomach with the dagger. They clearly show it's the dagger. So somehow that guy lives, and so the author, or not the author, the showrunner, he wrote the last episode, stated in either a watch party or an interview or something, I think it was an interview, that no, that character isn't dead. He will be back in season 2, even though he's been stabbed with the dagger that a scratch will kill you, but it doesn't work that way in his show. Just in the book series that his show is supposed to be based off of. Um, and that he is excited to kill surprising people in surprising ways to surprise the book readers. Um, and he also said that book readers need to stop thinking of this show as as the book series, because it's not the turning of the wheel of the book series that's being made into a show. It's his turn of the wheel that's being made into the show. And so they're not going to be the same thing. So then what's the point? What's the point? Like, I'm not talking they expanded a storyline, because I happen to have liked the Cowboy Bebop adaptation. I thought that all they did was enhanced a storyline. They made some characters who were clearly major characters to the main story have an actual story, because in the actual anime, um, those characters barely were in the show. Uh, but they also were like major plot points to the character, but they weren't fleshed out in the show. They just kind of showed up, they fought, they went on their way, and you're like, who was that guy? What was the deal? And they never really expound on it. In fact, I think the one character doesn't basically get any lines in the show, and so in the live adaptation, she's an actual character with dialogue and plot and everything. So it's a little different to me than that, because the dude is just not following anything that happened in the book. And it got worse, which is crazy. Like, how could it get worse than that? I don't care that the Horn of Valir, which is a magic item in the book, it isn't even important. It's a weird side thing that probably doesn't need to exist. Um, uh, it's okay. So the end of the story in the first book, they go to this place called the Eye of the World. The Eye of the World was a basically a well of pure male power. It wasn't tainted, and so all right, I need to go this way. Ooh, we finally got to stop raining. I feel like it's been raining for 3 days now while I've been playing this game. And so in the books, Rand, the Dragon Reborn, uses the power from the pure Satan to defeat the bad guy, a bad guy at the end of the book, and wipe out this Trolloc army. And and so the dude running the show is like, so I looked through this story, and I kind of felt like Rand does too much. Rand, the Dragon Reborn, the focal point of the story, does too much. And so I wanted to break up his storyline and give what happens to other people, uh, other people in the show. And so I wanted to split up what happens at the end of book one amongst the 5 characters that he has made the main characters. I guess, I don't know. Um, and so that Rand doesn't do everything, and and so instead he made Rand do nothing basically. He changed the way the magic works. There's no male and female half anymore. They're the same thing. So I don't understand how the males got tainted, but not the females when they're using the same power. They use it in the same way. In the books, it's used differently if you're a man or a woman. A woman lets the power flow through them. A male has to seize control of it. Um, uh, the uh, the items they use are Angriel, Sa Angriel, Tur Angriel. Angriel, Sa Angriel are used to when you use the power goes through the Angriel or the Sa Angriel to give you more power to use than what you normally have. On the show, he shoved power into the device, and then it exploded, being a flash of power out to get rid of the bad guy at the end of the episode. It's not how it works at all in the book. Maybe it was a Tur Angriel, which is an item that you feed power into and then it does something, but it looks like it looks like an item that was in the books, but it doesn't work like the item that was in the books. So I, that pretty much sums up the whole show. It looks like a thing that was in the books, but it doesn't work like the thing that was in the books. So Moraine uses the Fat Man. I think it was just an Angriel. It could have been a Saw-Angriel. I don't remember. If I remember correctly, an Angriel is one level. The Saw-Angriel is much more powerful. A Tur-Angriel was the ones that are like an item. You feed power into them, and they do a specific thing. Uh, and so like it was all different. And then Rand at the end of it, instead of fighting the bad guy's like, "Look, I can give you the life you dream of. All you have to do is want it." And I'm like, "Okay, but like you're not even saying, 'Hey, you have to worship me or you have to follow me and I will give you what you want.' You're just saying you have enough power to take what you want from the world." And then Rand is like, "No, that's not what she wants. So, go away." And that was Rand at the end, and I'm just like, wow. He didn't fight the Trolloc army at the end. Instead, they had all the men from the city where the Trolloc army was headed toward. Trollocs are their version of orcs. Um, they had all the men from the city head out in a big charge across the plains outside the city, and they marched, or they marched and charged because some of them were on horses, all the way across this field. And then once they did their charge across the field, well, they rode right into the wall that was there, the fortress, and then they got off their horses. So I don't know why they drew their swords and weapons and stuff and charged across the field, because all they did was a day before the battle went there and waited. Uh, and then when the Trollocs finally came within range, they pulled out crossbows and started firing crossbows at them until the Trollocs got close enough to kill them all. No tactics, no cavalry charges, no boiling oil or boulders being dumped off the wall, no channelers using magic to fight back. Just a handful of dudes firing crossbow bolts out of arrow slits until they were overwhelmed. And I was underwhelmed. Um, the dude who was there is one of the great generals. There's a lot about tactics and stuff in the books, and they're like five great generals who are alive. Or are they alive? Or I think the five great generals in the book are all the five greatest living generals. And So yeah, and so it was really weird to just get rid of that guy. It was really weird to even do what they did. I don't understand. They charged across the field to a wall, and then they got inside the wall and fired crossbow bolts. Like, okay, the city that has never fallen is what they kept saying. Faldara, the city that has never fallen, and then we go out and immediately die like we've never fought these guys before because we used no tactics to try and fight back. And then his sister, who I believe in the books barely has a speaking part. Again, I don't have a problem with her part being expanded on. But the thing is that remember the showrunner said I'm splitting the part amongst the other five characters. Well, the dude's sister comes out, gets four other women who can channel. None of them are Aes Sedai, which are the trained channelers. That's one of the things that just does not happen in the books. There are no trained channelers. You apparently either channel or you can't. Nobody has trained anybody in this show, which a lot of the books is training. And so her and these other two women from the city, and then two of the main characters, Nynaeve and Egwene, all joined together, which may be a circle, but it doesn't work like a circle in the book. It just looks like one on the show. Again, everything looks like it does in the book, sort of. not always, but sort of. But it doesn't work like it does in the book. And so nothing on how the world works, nothing on how the magic works, nothing on what the people do. None of it works like it does in the book. None of it follows what happens in the book, except in a very general sense of yes, Rand travels from Emmons Field to Shadar Logoth. Eventually, they wind up at Tar Valon. They skipped pretty much everything that happens in the book between Shadar Logoth and Tar Valon, um, which is fine because it's just traveling from place to place. But then they leave out important things like every single person who teaches these people from a small village who've never been outside the village in a world that doesn't have things like mail system or TV or internet. They don't know anything about the world. And they took every person in the books who teaches them about the world and removed them from the story. And I don't mean like random encounters they had that taught them about the world. I mean like Perrin speaks with wolves, and in the books he meets a dude who also speaks with wolves who can explain to him what's happening to him. So Perrin speaks with wolves. The showrunner wanted to change it so he spoke with bears instead because this is his turn of the wheel and not the books. Um, uh, has never met anybody about how to speak with wolves. I don't know why that was removed because they don't explain that he's even speaking to wolves in the show. He just has glowy yellow eyes sometimes, and wolves help him out. But at no point do they do any explanation of what's going on with his wolves. I only know that because I've read the book so many times and I know what's happening to him. But they never explain it in the show. They never mention the Forsaken in the show. The Generals of the Dark One. Not once did they get mentioned. Uh, it's like because it's a book series, they face off against the Forsaken and they beat them one by one until they get to the end, right? It's that kind of story. You don't go against the bad guy immediately, usually. You can build up to it. And there's. I don't know. So Rand in the books, he uses the one power. He wipes out the Trolloc army. He fights one of the Forsaken. Actually, they fight two of the Forsaken. But Rand only fights one of the Forsaken for real. And yeah, and that's none of that made it into the show. Instead, the women pulled power, so much power that it killed them. The Nynaeve blocked Egwene's power enough so that Egwene survived, but Nynaeve died, which people can't be brought back from death in the books willy nilly, but on the show they can. And so Egwene brings Nynaeve back to life, just like they show their power being used, and she barely uses any power, and Nynaeve just comes back to life. And I'm just like, ugh, this is just. And so those women destroyed the army instead of Rand, which even then I don't care, I guess. But the big thing is that one of the characters, Moraine, is like the focal point of a lot that happens in the show. She's the reason they even have left their village and survived. And she does a lot of stuff in the books. A lot. And so she's a channeler. And at some point in the books, way later in the books, like book, I don't even know, 6, 8, somewhere in there, 10 maybe. Um, I honestly don't remember when Rand captures the city, where it happens, but Rand has a problem in that he's the Dragon Reborn. He has some of the memories of the Dragon Reborn at this point, He has a problem fighting back against women. Uh, and so one of the Forsaken is this woman that his previous self was in love with, and so he can't hurt her. And so Moraine grabs this woman and tries to destroy the both of them. It's a suicide attack. Moraine is nowhere near as powerful as this woman, and so she grabs the woman, channels as much power as she can hold, and dives into this doorway that's supposed to kill them both. And and so that's when Moraine loses her power. Well, Moraine lost her power at the end of the first season. She no longer has power. Um, because reasons. Uh, and I'm just like, okay, so you just removed the power from one of the main characters who hasn't done a tenth of what she has to do to make the story move forward. How are you going to get to the places that this story goes without the main characters having the abilities of the main, like, what's the, you're not even following the book at this point. Why even have made a show and called it Wheel of Time if you're not going to Wheel of Time? I just don't understand how it can be this different. Uh, so yeah, so they took away Moraine's power, which yes does happen in the books, but way way later and way after she does so many important things. Although to be fair, those things probably not important because none of what leads up to it have happened and can't happen now and didn't happen anyways. The dagger that sucks out that dude's makes him so sick that he loses his memories. Moraine takes them to a place where he accidentally finds a way to get some memories that aren't his. But it fills the holes in his head like he wants. And uh, none of that can happen now because she can't channel, so she can't use the devices that led to it. And it's just, it's insanity the way that he's stripped the story out of the story. Good, they went to the Eye of the World, but guess what? Nothing that happened at the Eye of the World was the same, so none of it means the same thing, and none of what was supposed to have happened happened. So the Eye of the World didn't even need to exist because you didn't do anything there that mattered at all. Um, uh, there's no point of having been there. One of the I think because it looks kind of like what happened in the book, but it doesn't work the way it happened in the book. The Dark One's prison is sealed by seals, and they're individual seals. And in the book, they are discs of this stuff called Kulendar that can't break. And because the seals are weakening, the Kulendar is becoming softer and can break. And so they find one of those seals after he uses the satyr, the pure male source that's in the well. And at the bottom of the well was the Dragon Reborn, or the Dragon's Banner, the Horn of Valir, and one of the seals. And I think what they did on the show was they just made the Eye of the World a giant seal, and he cracked it while attacking the bad guy. So I think that's what happened, but they don't explain anything. Nobody knows what's going on because they don't explain anything. People who read the books don't know what's going on because it's not like the book in a way that can make you sure what you're seeing is what you think you're seeing, because everything just kind of looks like what's in the book but doesn't work the same way at all. And so yeah, so as an adaptation, it's a complete failure because it doesn't match anything you expect in any way at all. at least the other things I've watched that people rant about that I actually enjoy, I can see how they adapted the story to it because it follows the same story as the previous incarnation, and this is just a totally different thing. And then, real quick, at the very end of the book, there's this group of people, the Shanshan, who show up. And I don't think they actually show up in the book at this point. There's rumors of them. But for whatever reason, they put this scene in at the end of the final episode of the season. And the Shanshan are. So there's a human man who had an empire called Arthur Hawking. And Hawking sent his children across the ocean to conquer the world because he had already conquered the main continent that the story takes place on. And so these Shanshan are Arthur Hawking's children returning. Now, it's not his actual children, it's the descendants of his children. But they believe that the main continent should be under the power of the Hawkings as they return. And so that's what it's called to them, the return. And when they get there, they land and they conquer the town. They don't necessarily conquer the towns, but they are a military force that has been at constant war since they left. They use channelers as weapons. They don't. The Aes Sedai are known as meddlers, and because they do have a whole branch dedicated to politics, and so they for the most part walk freely through the worlds, but under the Hawkings who went across the ocean, they are chained as weapons, and so they're a different kind of channeler than anyone is familiar with when they return. And so they wear slave collars that women who can channel. No, this is brought up in the show, but some women can be taught to channel, and some women are inborn with the ability to channel. And so those who have the inborn ability are stronger than the ones who can be trained. And so they test people to see if they have the inborn ability to channel. And if they are, then they're leashed. Women who can be trained to channel are also tested, but they don't give off the same result. And so they are trained as the people who hold the leashes. And so the necklaces are a ter'angreal, an item that uses the power. And so what it does is it allows someone wearing the bracelet who can channel to control the person wearing the collar to channel. Gone from the books, or gone from in the show. Doesn't happen. Their channelers show up and they've got some kind of gold ball gag over their mouth, and some tattoos, and their ships look like what I would expect orcs from World of Warcraft to sail around in. None of it looks like the book at all. And the scene is super weird because there's a long beach and it's empty except for one little girl digging up shells. And behind the beach is a mountain range, or a cliff face, I guess. It's not a mountain range, it's a cliff lines the beach. And so the Shanshan pull up, they speak in a different language, they order their channelers to create a tidal wave to smash against the beach where all that's on the beach is one little girl. And they send a tidal wave that's not as tall as the cliffs. So nobody's sure what the point of that was, because once that tidal wave hits the cliff face, it's just going to rebound back into their own ships, and all they managed to do was kill a little girl on a beach. And they're not even like that in the book. In the book, they take over a town. The people are ordered to obey and wait, and then they're tested to see if they can channel or not. Those that are channeled are either taken for training to control their channelers, or they're leashed collars placed around their neck, and everybody else is basically free to go on about their daily lives. And so nobody's sure why they would show up in orc ships and kill a small girl on a beach with a tidal wave that would clearly rebound and destroy their own ships. Um, but hey, it's his turn of the wheel, right? Not the books. So yeah. All right, with that, be better than small things, leading the light, and I will talk to you later.